Hey guys, welcome back to episode 6 of our podcast or YouTube, wherever you're joining us today. So the intent today is to walk through what the most common marketplaces online are and sort of walk you through which would be best for your business, whether you're sort of starting from scratch or you're looking to add a new arm to one of your existing businesses. So the plan here is for us to walk through Amazon, Etsy, eBay, and then those kind of classified type marketplaces such as Facebook Market, Gumtree, or Craigslist. The intent here, like we say, is really for us to help you identify what the best platform is for you, as we've kind of had a bit of experience on pretty much all of these platforms. So over to yourself, Jake, to kick off for Amazon.
Sweet. So I'm going to crack on with Amazon. Thanks, bud. So yeah, basically pretty simple, right? What is Amazon? Now, obviously, I'm not going to try and educate you on what Amazon are in regards to who they are, whatever. I'm sure absolutely, you'd have to be living under a rock to not know who Amazon are at this point. I think they even ship Amazon packages to the South Pole. So let's be clear, everybody should know who Amazon are at this point. Now, at least from a personal perspective. So from an e-commerce perspective, for a seller, Amazon are by far the largest online marketplace. They are a business that have products that they sell themselves, but then they also have external sellers that come in and sell through the Amazon platform, essentially. That's what we do as an example. And essentially, you act as a seller for your products, either, utilizing some of the services Amazon are able to help provide, like, the logistics, or alternatively, just using them as a marketplace. The average user per year, obviously, US/UK stats here, but the average user purchases around $1,400, or the equivalent of about £1,000 a year on this platform. I've got to be honest, I'm pretty convinced I spend way more than that. So Amazon is definitely the place to be when it comes to the amount of dollars that go through it as an e-commerce. There are some stupid statistics out there about the percentage of online commerce that goes through Amazon. I'm not even going to try and quote those because they are changing and going up at a drastic pace. So what we thought we'd cover is a couple of the pros, cons, and then, realistically who we think Amazon is best for. So, we've kind of explained what Amazon is there. Some of the key pros. So, it's obvious based on all those stats that we've just thrown at you, they are by far the largest. They are not even close. The others that we're going to describe, in all honesty, are nowhere near in regards to total, revenue through their site. They are by far the largest audience. Not only that, they are, in theory, one of the most trusted sites because people have and believe in the Amazon platform. Ultimately, they have a ridiculously high conversion rate in comparison to, the other marketplaces. It's not necessarily in comparison to, a really honed in niche site. You could easily have on your own website, you could easily have a conversion rate that is stronger than that. But when you look across the marketplaces, they have the highest conversion rate. And that's basically the number of people who convert per view of that listing. They've got large brands on there, and those large brands ultimately will end up on there either via, themselves. So, you might see a Nike store. Nike, wow, that feels very American. Nike, there we go. Let's get back to Britain or back to the UK. So you might see a Nike page or store sat on there that is owned and run by Nike. Equally, you could see a set of Nike products sold by a third-party seller. So ultimately, most big brands will end up on there some way, shape, or form, or whether it be through their own, desire or someone else reselling their goods. A couple of the cons, ultimately, most people will agree that, Amazon is not great in regards to, the future of e-commerce. You are essentially fueling the beast. The more people buy on Amazon, ultimately that's going to be at the detriment of small businesses on the web. So, you can look into that whichever way you like. Ultimately, that is, at your own peril, I suppose, whether you are happy or not happy to fuel the beast. The one thing we will say with Amazon, one of the biggest cons is you are at the mercy of the beast here as well. So it's an extremely volatile platform in regards to if Amazon decides they are going to delist you, you don't have a leg to stand on. Ultimately, you hear all sorts of horror stories. We have heard many about, someone selling very well. All of a sudden they just get delisted. Yeah, maybe because someone's decided they're infringing on something. Someone's decided that they've reported them for copying a listing, even if that might not be true. And unfortunately, when that happens, you really are up against a wall with regards to getting your listing reinstated. Amazon have very hard and fast rules, and ultimately they very rarely go back on a decision. It is what we've seen in the past. The last thing I will say here is their customer service for sellers, I've got to be honest, is terrible. We spent, for an inside story here, I suppose, we spent probably 6 months trying to get ourselves approved on Amazon over one very simple issue. It was an address issue. And I cannot tell you how many times we explained our point very clearly, very articulately, with evidence, and yet we got copy and paste style responses. The Amazon customer service for sellers is not first class. First class for customers, yes. You'll get a refund, you'll get extended Prime membership, whatever. You can't argue with that. But I have to be honest, from a seller's perspective, Amazon customer service is terrible.
Yeah, mate. I might add something to that, because I don't know if you will have seen from our emails earlier on, but we just got an email back from somebody at Amazon customer service saying, "Hey, I've looked into your case. It looks like you have been approved." So, we were getting bounced around so much that somebody has, 6 months down the line, looked at our issue and responded saying, "Don't worry, your issue's fixed." Just gives you an idea of the, some of the responses that you'll get.
Absolutely. I got to be honest, whether it be approving for a seller account or whether it be approving to sell a restricted product, I cannot tell you how frustrating. And I've got to be honest, I honestly think sometimes, we've said this before, right? It is amazing how anyone wants to sell on Amazon when you consider how infuriating that process is. But then ultimately, the reason people want to sell on Amazon is because it's like a money-making machine in regards to how much or what the high percentage of online dollars are on Amazon, right? Lastly, just covering off, who do we think Amazon's best for? Ultimately, Amazon is best for pretty much everyone. We would say it's not great if you're a first-time seller, you haven't sold anything online. And you've got to be honest, the key reason being just ultimately, we feel that there are learnings to be, driven from, selling on your own website on other cheaper, simpler marketplaces. Marketplaces that perhaps don't require a monthly fee, like a good Amazon account will. Something like an Etsy where you sell when you make a sale, and the reason being is that will help you hone in your copy, the way you describe your product, and ultimately we also think that will help you hone in some of your pictures. Now, there are different requirements for Amazon with regards to pictures, but we think it will help you hone in your your services. Ultimately, though, we think most businesses will want to end up on Amazon, because if they don't sell themselves on Amazon, we look at our coffee. If we didn't sell our coffee on Amazon ourselves, We feel that, if we became a big enough brand, it wouldn't be long before someone was buying in bulk from us and then selling our coffee on our behalf without any real, desire for us to do that. So I've got to be honest, rabbled on about Amazon, but, it's the beast, and there you go. So Amazon, we hope that helped. Rory, take us away.
Cheers, mate. So, Etsy, Jake. Jake, your new name's Etsy. Jake just mentioned Etsy there. It's a really good site to get your teeth into as a kind of first time seller. So I'll just take that right off the bat. This could be something really interesting for you if you're looking to get into e-commerce for the first time. So a couple of stats here. Etsy recently has seen a huge amount of growth, especially through the pandemic. You just have to look at their stock price, and Jake will be able to tell you more about this than me, but it's certainly seen a lot of growth. Is it still up, mate?
Yeah. Before pandemic, I think the stock price was around like $60. I think it's up at like 250, which kind of tells you how much the overall market believes in the growth that they've seen, right? But anyway, this isn't a stock episode, so
no, but I like it. It really does show that the market sees it as a more and more valuable place to sell online. And one of the big things that's really come out of this is that they're international. And when I say international, Etsy is and was primarily based out of the US. Their international markets have grown exponentially, and the UK is now their largest market outside of the US. So they've seen a huge amount of growth. The initial focus and the intent of Etsy was really kind of focused around handmade. So typically things like your arts and crafts and one-off type items. But now if you go on there, you can buy literally anything. So it has become, quite literally a marketplace similar to Amazon in that you can pretty much find any product you want on there. The thing is, even though they do sell pretty much everything on there, the focus is still very much on small business. The tools that they give you and the way that you use the platform as a seller is not set up for large or scale businesses. So if you're looking to really scale something out, automate it, it can be done on Etsy, but they're really not set up in that way. It's very much designed for you to be going in there and manually dispatching orders, or manually going in there and updating customers and things. It's very much set up for that sort of personal one-to-one service, which I actually think is great, but it makes it a bit more difficult if you're looking to really hit those huge numbers. Now, in terms of numbers, the average shop on Etsy actually sells $10,000 a year, which is probably somewhere around £8,000 at today's exchange rate. But don't fall for that stat. What you'll actually realize is that you'll realize if you dig into that a little bit more, 63% of stores will sell less than $100 a year, which is, again, probably about £80, something like that. So that average is really skewed by the huge shops on there. So the sort of 1% that are doing, I think there's, is it Planet Kate is the number one seller on there, and they've sold millions and millions of units. So
1.6 million units at latest check.
6 million units. There you
go. 1.6. She does about 100,000 units a day at the moment.
Gotcha. All right, so 100,000 units a day, and hats off to their team, because I do not know how they're going in and manually dispatching orders at that kind of rate. It's madness. So, if anyone from that team is listening to this, please get in contact. We'd love to get some tidbits from you guys. Okay, so pros. Etsy actually has a fairly high ASP for quality, and I should caveat this, for quality items. You can go on there and you can disprove me quite quickly by typing in something and seeing that someone's willing to sell it for £1 or something like. But if you actually take a look, a lot of shops that have a lot of sales, you'll notice their price is set quite high. And that's because people go on there, it's quite a gifty type site, and people are looking for quality items. So they are willing to spend a little bit more for those items, which, is certainly benefited our business, or our businesses, I should say. We've got several on Etsy at this point, and they all typically tend to be sort of middle upper of their price, I guess, range. So, typically you can get a higher ASP on Etsy. The costs to start on Etsy are really cheap. So there's no monthly cost per se. So essentially the fee structure is based on the number of listings you have. So you pay 20 cents to list something, which is about 16p. And then when you actually sell it, you pay a flat rate fee, which again, I think it's about 20 pence, something like that, and a percentage. So whatever that percentage point is. That's different to Amazon in that with Amazon, you're paying a monthly fee, and then you're also paying your transaction fee on top. So it can feel quite cheap in terms of actually getting yourself a presence on Etsy. Now, the drawback of that is that actually typically that flat rate plus the percentage plus, the relisting fee, that tends to end up being quite a lot every time you sell a product. So you have to kind of bake that into your margin. The other thing on there is that if you do put some time and effort into investing into some quality listings, and what I mean by that is sort of taking time on the titles, getting some good quality photos that make you stand out, you can really stand out amongst all of the other shops, because Etsy doesn't actually standardize the way that you have to do things like Amazon will. So for example, you can have a background in your image, which means that you have the opportunity to really make yourself stand out. Whereas on some other platforms, you have to take a photo of the product with no distractions. So you don't have that same opportunity to, really stand out with great photography, for example. Some of the cons, there's huge amount of competition on Etsy. Obviously, you could say that about any of the platforms based on how big they are, but because of that sort of low barrier to entry, everyone can create an Etsy store quite easily. So there is a huge amount of competition on there. Now, the thing that comes with that is that there can typically be a lot of copycats on there. The site, I don't think, is not policed as well as a lot of other e-commerce sites. So you can find that people rip off designs, for example, if you're doing custom designs, or they'll just look at your listing and bulk buy that product and sell it for a little bit less. So there can be a lot of copycats on there. And then the last thing that I would say is that the inbuilt reporting, and it's similar to what I said about how this isn't set up for large business, the inbuilt reporting is pretty much terrible. We use eRank, which I think is £10 a month or something like that. I guess Jake can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's about $9 a month, so it's like $6.50-ish.
Perfect. So relatively in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty cheap, and we use that to help us with our reporting because the inbuilt reporting is just no good. I'll pop a link in the description. There's no affiliation from our perspective, so if you are interested in that, go and take a look. So just to sort of round this off then, who's Etsy best for? So I would say it's great if you've got a handmade or custom product that you want to sell. In fact, you'll really excel on Etsy if you've got that type of product. If you've got a hobby that you want to turn into a business, so if you're currently already kind of doing something crafty and you want to turn that into a business, it's a great stepping stone. If you've got a niche product that photographs well, so something that kind of people would find interesting as a gift, again, that would do really well on Etsy. And then lastly, it's great for a first online store. So if you are really looking to get into e-commerce and get yourself a presence online, Etsy is really great for that. So I think that pretty much rounds it out for Etsy. So I think we're going to head on to eBay now.
Yep, down the e-commerce yellow brick road, as we'll call it. And we hit eBay. Why not? Let's throw a little Wizard of Oz-esque reference in there.
Why not?
So yeah, eBay. I think eBay is an interesting one, right? So we'll hit it nice and easy. eBay has a pretty large audience, and we'll come to that in a second. But ultimately, for I assume most people at this point will know what eBay is all about, right? We probably all encountered it It's been around pretty much since the launch of the internet. I think it's one of the old giants, I suppose would be the way to kind of call it. It's been there since dial-up, which tells you how long it's been around. For those, Gen Zers, dial-up is an old style of internet connection. So don't worry about that. You probably never experienced it, but dial-up is an interesting one. So anyway, initially the focus of eBay was all about auction style listings, right? So there's a product. You could bid on it and it would last 7 days, and the highest bidder at the end of those 7 days would be the winner. What we're seeing now is more and more there is a move to have a good percentage of listings on there that are buy it now. People ultimately setting a price, and that price is the price you pay if you want the product. They do have the second largest user on the web out of these marketplaces, just after Amazon. And what you'll see generally is the majority of things being sold on there are secondhand items. That would be the majority of sales. They have, over the last couple of years, moved towards enabling businesses to take their products on there, so sell new items and have a price set for those. And ultimately, that has become more and more popular. In the UK alone, eBay has around 24 million users, which is nearly half the population, which is a mind-boggling statistic. If you could launch tomorrow on a platform that essentially reached half of the UK population, that's pretty insane to think. Just from a UK perspective. One of the things that eBay has recently become a little bit more of a home for as well is certified refurbished. So someone takes a product, they refurb it to like new, replacing the bits that are worn and torn, and then they'll publish that as a like new style product. That's particularly relevant in the tech space. So that gives us an overview of what eBay is all about. From a pro's perspective, keep it pretty simple. We've just said that they've got the second largest audience base after Amazon. So ultimately, you're going to have a huge audience base to go after. As kind of explained, it is one of the older style platforms. It's the oldest marketplace in that regard. That does actually mean that in some ways the audience is also a little older as a general rule. So that can be a pro or a con depending on the type of product you're selling. The audiences are used to the different types of purchasing options available on eBay. So, people do expect to see buy it now prices as well as auction style prices at this point. So, you can offer both if you have a preference. The one thing we will say is we think, based on what we've seen, there is a higher purchasing intent when someone comes to eBay to buy a product. Now, the reason being is when you look at Etsy, or Amazon, these places have, when you search for something, they'll also show you many other items that are of similar styles or similar product types, right? Whereas the way eBay have kind of structured their algorithm to return their search results, they don't typically show, if you type in Harry Potter lunchbox, they really try to hone in on that for you and really just show you, not always, but they'll do their best to show you an item that's quite close to what you're after. So you won't often find yourself typing in Harry Potter lunchbox and being shown a magic wand from Sooty and Sweep, for example. I don't know why I pulled that example, but let's do that. So those are some of the key pros. So when someone comes looking for a product, that they are shown their product a lot more closely, and as a result, we found that there is a better purchase intent. Some of the key cons, though, is we often find that the fee structure is surprisingly unclear. Sometimes it can depend on the final sales price. Sometimes there can be promos in place where, save on insertion fees. Honestly, the fee structure on eBay is so you almost need a PhD to understand it sometimes. Not that they set out to be particularly confusing. It's just the fact that the way they have structured it, there's so many different fees. It becomes a bit of a pain to get your head around. Typically, we have seen that eBay people expect lower ASPs. When they go to Etsy, they're expecting something handcrafted and therefore will pay a higher SP, as Rory mentioned. However, on eBay, because there's that inherent expectation that something is probably secondhand, or it was an auction style. I think ultimately people have this association when they go to eBay that it's going to be a lower ASP. Not always the case, but quite often you'll find people looking for a bargain. We found from a seller's experience, how we talked about the fee structure being a little unclear, we've actually found the cost to be quite expensive for eBay, right? There's an upfront fee, plus then there's all these other fees, when you sell a product. So we've found those costs to not be overly effective when you consider, the purchase rate for a business. It's not to say that you can't make it work. There are plenty of businesses making good money on eBay. But we found that, as a starting point, it's not necessarily the greatest place to start. Who's eBay best for? So if you're selling tech or hardware, we think it's a great place, especially if it's like lower priced tech, whether it be cables, that sort of stuff. It can be really good if you're selling something quite bespoke, collectible. Pokemon cards are probably one of the big examples at the moment of things being sold on eBay, or not just Pokemon cards, but like sports cards, baseball cards, that sort of stuff. And then not exclusively, but typically you'll find most businesses that are on there are businesses that are holding stock. There are reports, and there are definitely businesses out there that are drop shipping, but as a general, we found that most businesses on there are probably holding stock of sorts. So you have to be prepared to have that initial investment ultimately. High level, eBay is definitely a good option, as you work through it. But we personally weren't big fans of the eBay experience. But that's just our take. Give it a go and find out how it goes for you for 3 months. What have you got to lose is always the way we look at these things, right, Rory?
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw it back to you, and you can finish us off before we with our last platform.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, the last platform, really, actually, we've kind of amalgamated a couple together, and that's mainly because although they are distinct and different, really they are online classified sites, essentially. So what we've got here is we've got Facebook Marketplace, we've got Gumtree, and then for our American audience, I don't even know if we've got a Craigslist here, but if we do, it's not very popular, I don't think. But essentially what we're talking about here, and this is the same for all of these kind of platforms, is we're talking about places where you can go and you can put up a listing, and you can put the pictures, and you say the exact price, and the transaction for that typically occurs as like an in-person kind of transaction. Now, don't get me wrong, you can certainly sell on there, and you can sell in, and you can you can purchase through escrow, for example. So you could use PayPal or something like that and ship the item. But typically the way these things go is that you put up a listing, and then you have a kind of an in-person transaction somehow. What's typically the main kind of the typical product that are sold on there are sort of used items. I think the term nowadays is pre-loved. I think that's what eBay's trying to coin the term as. But essentially, you'll find a lot of people kind of selling things that are used from around the house to try and move them on, and that's typically what it's really good for. However, as you'll notice as we go through here, you can very much set up a business, and people do have businesses working mainly through these kind of classified sites. So the pros then, huge audience size, they get a lot of attention, these things. Facebook Marketplace, more and more so nowadays as, if your feed is anything like mine on Facebook, they're constantly showing me sort of secondhand bikes that people are selling, and that can be, can draw your eye to it when you're just sort of going down through your Facebook timeline. So huge audience size, and a lot of people very interested in the products on there because typically it's associated with kind of getting a bargain. Typically it's free to list and sell on the platforms. I think that Gumtree and Craigslist do offer kind of premium options, so you can almost sort of advertise your product on the site, and you can bump it up and get more pictures and stuff like that. But there are free options essentially, and Facebook Marketplace completely free as far as I'm aware. You can just go on there and list for free. It's also a great place to advertise services. A lot of people, if they kind of have, their business as a service, whether it be, bike repairs or something like that, it's a great place to go and advertise those services. Some of the cons, it's not really viable to create a business at scale on these services. Now, if you think about it, someone might be able to go on there and transact and kind of sell, one-off items, or even they might be able to sell an item a day on that. But when we talk about scale, we're talking about selling an item every 10 minutes, every 15, that's not really possible. It's not set up. It doesn't have the tools in order to allow you to do that effectively. Having said that, it is definitely possible to buy and resell if you have a product niche that you're kind of into. Going back to what Jake was saying just a moment ago about Pokemon cards, there is probably a thriving market of people purchasing Pokemon cards from these sites and then going reselling them on higher priced sites elsewhere. Maybe they're sort of going across to eBay and reselling the product. The other con that I would say is typically it's not the safest place to sell something. Now, like I said, you can sell things through escrow, and escrow is essentially just an intermediary that will hold the money until the transaction's complete. So PayPal is a form of an escrow. You could sell a product, on Facebook Marketplace, and then, ask that the buyer sends the money through PayPal. So you're a little bit safer there, and then you could send it on. But typically the way that it normally works is that you'll agree to meet and you'll hand over the item face to face, and they'll pay you in cash. So, I don't really need to go into why that's not the safest way to, be selling products. Lastly, people are generally looking for free or cheap items on these sites. They're not really going there with the intent to purchase at the price that they would, at a store. So, realistically, you're not necessarily going to be able to go on there and sell, your coffee at the same price as you'd expect to sell your coffee on Amazon, for example. So who are these kind of classified sites best for? It's a really good place to kind of buy and resell very specific items. Like I mentioned earlier, you could go on and buy, sort of collectible items, hopefully at a discount. Hopefully you do that in a credible way. I don't think it's necessarily fair to go and unwittingly rip somebody off. But if, they're selling something, they want to move it along and you can get it at a cheaper price there and then resell it on eBay, I think that's a really great way to go. Another thing it could be great for is moving stock, moving old or slow moving stock. So if you've got a business and you've already purchased stock and there's some things you can't really get rid of, you could potentially try and group it together and sell it on there at a discount. And then lastly, I've already mentioned this, but advertise in-person services. It's really great for getting the word out there for your business. So yeah, I think that probably sort of rounds off, those sort of classified ads. So I'll hand it back over to yourself, Jake.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe the sourcing side of things, one of the best things you can look for on Facebook, etc., I think is when you're looking for what they call job lots quite often, you know, where someone's got a ton of pallets or a load of leftover cardboard, or, you know, they've got an excess of something they're trying to get rid of. So that can be one of the best things to try and source. Job lot of golf balls, weird example, but so yeah, all in. Thank you for listening. We hope you found this useful. If you did, please like, subscribe, or follow. You know, we'd really appreciate that. You know, obviously just trying to get this off the ground. You know, love to hear your feedback and comments. You know, if you're already selling online and you're utilizing some of these platforms, we'd love to hear what platforms you're using and how you found those. Or if, you know, you'd like to hear anything else about a different platform that we didn't cover today. You know, as we say every time, if you like coffee, check us out. You know, check us out on our store. You know, we're definitely going to have to hook up some sort of discount code, I'm sure, for anyone that does get involved with the episodes. All in. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time.
Cheers.